where we take a look at various pressing issues in the Nigerian economy, and if need be, of course, beyond the Nigerian economy, and of course, situations that occur in the country. Well, on this week's agenda, we're going to be taking a look at a crucial issue that has been in the news. We're going to be looking at transparency and how a lot of issues have pointed to this fact. Last week, we had a very interesting session where we took a look at 60 billion naira that was alleged to be given to farmers in terms of phones, providing mobile phones to them, and we believe we thrashed that. Your comments have been coming. Thank you so much. You can be a part of the show. All you have to do is send your comments and contributions to the agenda at LoveworldPlusNews.net. My name is Philip Haza. Once again, you are welcome. The topic, like I said, is Nigeria towards transparency and accountability in government funds management. Yes, it's a very important one, and it has led to a whole lot so far. All right, well, I'm not going to be doing this alone. Of course, I'm greeted in the studio with a very distinguished guest. He's here with me. His name is Sylvester Ebudage. I hope I pronounced that well, sir. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
It's a pleasure being here with you.
Yes, it is. In fact, it's more of a pleasure for us having you. Mr. Sylvester is the MD CEO, Paradigm Communications. He's a publisher of National Daily Newspaper and National Standard Magazine. He's also a consultant and a public policy analyst. You're welcome once again, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just give you a rundown of this that we're going to be looking at the background so we can have a broad spectrum of what the topic is about. It has not been the best of times between the federal government and the former Minister of Education, Mrs. Oby Ezekwesili, as the duo have engaged in a war of words over the alleged spending of $67 billion reserves. Now, Mrs. Ezekwesili, also a former World Bank executive who recently spoke at the 42nd convocation ceremony of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, alleged the squandering of a significant sum of $45 billion in the foreign reserves account and another $22 billion in the excess crude account. Very striking, which is the direct savings from increased earnings from oil. She said the administration of former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo handed over the sum to the successor government in 2007. We believe that this disagreement stems from the lack of accountability and transparency in the management of government funds in Nigeria. Now the question is, can government funds be better managed to reduce the incidence of corruption and mismanagement? All right, these and more we'll hope to analyze on the edition of the agenda. All right, first of all, we want to look at the reaction, the mudslings of words between Ezekwesili and the federal government over the use of funds in the foreign reserves and the excess crude account. What do you think about the whole scenario, sir?
Well, for me, it's as a concerned citizen, I would say it's a huge disappointment. You know, to see a former minister and the presidency trading words over how much was left in the excess crude account, how much was spent and how much was not spent. You know, the presidency says, oh, Ezekwesili got it wrong. Ezekwesili says, okay, fine. If you say I got it wrong, then let's come for an open debate and then let's join issues. I have my facts and you come with your facts. I do not think that Nigeria, where we are today, that these are the issues that we should be concerning ourselves with, because you're talking about a country that wants to be among the 20 most developed economies by the year 2020, which is just about 7 years away. And here we are talking about issues as, an issue like transparency, whether or not a certain amount left by the administration of former President Olusegun Obasanjo was indeed squandered by the administration of late Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan. This is not the best for the country, when we should have been talking about how much infrastructure we have been able to put in place, how we have been able to guarantee security in the society, how we have been able to provide an enabling environment for the manufacturing sector to thrive, how we have been able to ensure that the educational system is what is supposed to be, that produce or products, as it were, from our education system are able to compete anywhere in the world, and that they are indeed what they are supposed to be. You know, these are the issues I think we're supposed to be looking at as a country that is headed for a target where it really wants to be a major player in the global economy come the year 2020. But here we are muslinging over how SS crude account was spent. I think this is not the best for the country right now.
But do you think it's in her place to call for a debate? You know, is it because of her status in the economy or in the country that she can, you know, call the federal government to a debate based on this issue?
Well, having said that, I mean, I must not fail to give her credit, at least for speaking up. I mean, seeking clarification. Yeah. You know, while many believe that rather than accuse the presidency directly, why not throw it up as a question and then give the presidency an opportunity to explain how these monies were spent? You know, rather than just go head on and say, hey, you squandered the money. Oh, okay. And our presidency comes up to say, hey, there was nothing like $67 billion. It was $43 billion. But this is my position. Nigerians have a responsibility to demand accountability.
Nigerians generally.
To demand financial responsibility on the part of those who have been appointed, you know, to hold one office or the other. So, I mean, as far as that is concerned, I must give credit to the former minister for at least being bold enough to speak up at that forum, throwing up the relevant questions. But like I said, you know, this is not where we are supposed to be at the moment, but this is where we are. So we must face reality. I'm sure she's frustrated by the fact that a country that should have made, you know, a given progress over these last few years, yes, seem not to be making the needed progress. A step forward, I mean, one step forward, 10 steps backward. I'm sure that frustration must have given rise to that outburst from her. But I also don't think that the presidency is handling it the right way. I do not think it is a case of presidency versus Obi Ezekwesili. Okay. I think the presidency, they owe Nigerians a duty to actually tell Nigerians how these monies have been spent over the years. Okay. These facts they have, they should put them on the table. And you see, I may not get it correctly, but somehow in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, you know, he says something like, you know, when you refuse to accept opposition, when you try to silence a voice that is not in agreement with yours, that there is no greater violence. I don't think what the presidency is doing is really proper. You know, going after her, trying to engage in what we can simply refer to as character assassination. Okay, well, what about when you were minister? I don't think, see, she's asked relevant questions. Can we just provide answers to these questions? Nigerians deserve to know. Nigerians are demanding to know. I mean, I don't know how much you know this. Yesterday, a group of Nigerians took to the streets in Abuja, protesting at the Supreme Court and also at the Ministry of Justice. And I also think that is a step in the right direction. Okay. Nigerians deserve to know. And Nigerians must stand up because over time, these public office holders, governments, whether at state level, local government level, or even at the federal level, they fail to understand the fact that they hold those positions in trust. Okay. Because we are in a democracy. Yeah. You are holding that position in trust. So however you spend state resources, you are supposed to give account of how these resources are spent. And when you're not doing that, because most of government activities, particularly with fiscal activities, are all shrouded in secrecy. You know, there is no openness, there is no fiscal responsibility on the part of government. Not too long ago, the Nigerian Governors Forum came up with a fiscal responsibility policy, you know, a bill that every state was supposed to have signed into law. I don't know how many states have gone ahead to do that. A bill that requires every governor, every government, at the state level, to be accountable to the populace, to let the people know how every kobo, how every naira is spent in the state. is spent at the local government level, is spent at the federal level. I think that is what Ezekwesili is simply asking. And a person at that level, you must not take it away from her as well.
Yeah.
She's quite knowledgeable.
Quite knowledgeable.
I mean, there is no smoke without fire, they say. For her to have made those allegations, I'm sure that somehow she has an idea of what may have transpired. She's also been in the system, you know. But on the other side, the presidency trying to make her look
clamp her down, and,
you know, not qualified, as it were, trying to say to her, you are not a saint after all. I think that goes to show that maybe really the presidency, you know, is not really telling us everything we're supposed to know about this matter.
Okay, let's leave this for a while, but do you think on the management of the foreign reserves, how can proper accountability be ensured? What views can you give to us, despite the fact that the central bank, yes, has the primary function of managing it? You know, is it the Freedom of Information Act that should be deployed here, the FOI bill?
I'm aware that the Nigerian Governors Forum, they are in court challenging how the SS crude account funds are being appropriated, how they are being spent by the federal government. That case is going to the Supreme Court right now, and I don't know when that judgment will be given, but I think clearly the questions are, I mean, the main question is, should there be such a special fund? Because don't forget that funds, I'm told, was created in 2004, and the whole idea was to serve as a buffer.
Okay.
You know, for instance, if the budget was benchmarked at maybe $100 per barrel of crude oil, and for any reason it rose to 120 and later is going to go down to 80, let's have these funds set aside so that when we have crisis, we can immediately deploy these funds. And that is why one of the arguments from the presidency is that the reason the effect of the global financial meltdown of 2008-2009 did not as much affect the Nigerian economy was because of the availability of funds like this to immediately provide as a shock absorber for the economy. But the point is, should we really have such funds? And if yes, how do we ensure? Because we say CBN manages the fund. Who is CBN?
Okay.
Who appoints the CBN governor? I mean, between the CBN and the presidency, a deal can be reached and the funds are deployed. Okay. And that is where the Governors Forum is saying, no, anytime you want to spend from this money, we want to know. Okay. And moreover, you can't just keep this money there and then we are in dire need of funds. Because these monies, some of them are also, I mean, they are considered Nigeria's funds. I remember in 2001, during the GSM license auction, the funds that accrued to the federal government by reason of the sale of those licenses were supposed to have been set aside to develop the telecom infrastructure in the country at the time. And I remember the former governor of Abia State then actually mobilized his colleagues and demanded that the money was Nigeria's money and as such should be shared among the states. Instead of deploying those resources to critical infrastructure development in the telecom sector, which would have drastically reduced the cost of telephony or telecom services in Nigeria today, that money was shared to the states and nothing was really done. I think we are missing something here. Our governments have to show that sign of responsibility. They must be responsible enough to ensure that funds that have been set aside are judiciously utilized for the purposes for which they have been set aside. Okay. If these funds have been set aside to help the economy, to grow the economy, to ensure that the economy does not suffer any shock whatsoever, these funds should be judiciously utilized. But what has happened over time is that from these funds, they just decide and then an approval is given just behind the curtain. All of these, you know, under the table deals are caught and all that. And I think these funds are not eventually utilized for the purposes for which they should be utilized. I don't have a problem with a government deciding to set aside funds for development purposes to grow the economy, but such funds must indeed be used for the purposes for which they've been set aside. Our economy today is in a bad shape. Forget about the theories, forget about the figures they try to present. Oh, our economy grew towards the last quarter of 2012 by 6.4%. It is expected to continue growing at that same percentage.
People are still hungry.
But the point is, where is this growth?
What's the benchmark,
Where is this growth? How many people can really see it? We still suffer from epileptic electricity supply.
Of course.
Despite the claims that there is a significant improvement, most people who actually consume this electricity have not come out to say there is improvement. We need improvement in power generation, distribution, and all that. We need because you can't grow an economy without adequate power. You can't grow a society without adequate security. Just yesterday, there was a raid in Kaduna. Suspected members of Boko Haram attacked a police station, attacked a bank, carted away so much money. We're talking about threat from the Niger Delta over the conviction of Henry Oka in faraway South Africa. These are issues we are grappling with. We have a growing rate of unemployment in the society. These are issues we are grappling with. And then you're talking about setting aside certain funds, and then we are not seeing these monies being deployed to ensure that the critical infrastructures that will help the society to grow, they're not there.
Wow. Okay, we'll have to take a break. But if you're just joining us, this is the agenda, and we're looking at towards transparency and accountability in government funds management. A lot of stories are emanating in several parts of the country in terms of mismanagement of funds. Why is the case? Despite the resources that we are heavily blessed with, our country is still in dire need of a change. Talking about increasing the economy. We need to take a break now. Let's get a response from the Minister of Information, Mr. Labaran Maku, as against the speech by Obi Ezekwesili. We'll be back when we take this break. Stay tuned.
Reacting to the statement made by a former vice president of the World Bank over allegations of squandering the nation's external reserves, Mr. Maku describes the statement as inaccurate.
The statement by the former World Bank vice president that the government of President Musa Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan have squandered $67 billion in reserves, including 45 billion in external reserves and 22 billion in the excess crude account left by the Obasanjo administration at the end of May 2007 is factually incorrect. At the end of May 2007, Nigeria's gross reserves stood at $43.13 billion. It is fallacious to say that the nation's external reserves were dipped into or misapplied by the federal government. It is important to note that the federal government cannot dip its hands into our reserves.
With an acknowledgement that Nigeria still faces some challenges, most of which were built over a long period of time, the Minister of Information appealed to those who have been privileged to serve the nation to desist from making statements that are untrue.
I don't know if you heard much part of that report there. The Minister of Information saying that the federal government will not put hands into funds that belongs to the entire nation, except, of course, very importantly.
The question is, why is the Nigerian Governors Forum in court?
Exactly, over the same issue.
Don't forget, the minister has to do his job. His job is to try to be to defend his principle, defend the federal government, speak in favor of the federal government. But beyond what he has to do as his job is the reality. The fact is these funds are being tampered with.
Yes.
These funds are being spent unilaterally. And I think that is why the Governors Forum are in court. You know, when they had a meeting earlier in the week and then, you know, insisted that they were not going to accept any further adjournment from the Supreme Court, we read that that Mr. President ordered that $1 billion be taken from the funds and shared among the states.
So that means at will you can just take...
That's the point. And then these state governments are saying, see, our environments are crying for development. Nigeria is craving for development, but we have funds that we just can't access. It is Nigeria's money, and this is supposed to be a federal system of government.
But I was just about to come to that point. If you say federal system of government, the states, are they not supposed to cater for their funds and take care of themselves, while the central bank's management take care of the funds and ensure that it's protected? What do you think about that?
That is why many are still calling for true federalism in the country today. Until we have true federalism, we will continue to have the crisis we're having today, because the concentration of power, you know, at the center is still very, very much. I mean, many have argued that the Nigerian president and perhaps the president of the United States are the most powerful, you know, presidents that any democratic country, you know, would have today, because of the concentration of power. You know, the amount of power that they have, you know, and coming back home, that is the reason development has slowed. That is why everybody wants to get into government, particularly at the center.
Center, yes, where there's a
because there's so much money there, there's so much power there, but it is not working. It's not working. This is a country of 160 million people. You're talking about 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. There needs to be a devolution of power. You need to just let go. Let these federating states, as it were, become autonomous to a large extent. And so that heads of these state governments, like, I mean, in the person of the governors, can actually become, I mean, be held responsible, because most of them now hide under the guise of, there's no so much, I mean, there's no money at the state level, all the monies, we have them at the federal level, and because of that, we are unable to do what we want to do. But we have also come to see some states that, you know, have tried to make a difference. So that is where the argument that, so much money at the center, so much power at the center is not allowing us get our jobs done, that argument may not hold for too long. But I mean, so that we don't lose focus from our discussion, I was just trying to play up the fact that Labaran Marco couldn't have said anything less. Whatever he said was what he was supposed to say.
What he was employed to do.
You know, I mean, that's what he's paid to do. Yes. But the reality still stands. Yes, federal government, I mean, as far as paper is concerned, as far as the face value is concerned, you are not supposed to tamper with these funds. But the point is, when you tamper with these funds, what are they used for? Over the years, I read somehow yesterday, I don't know how true that is, that even the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, is saying Nigeria must account for over, I mean, over $100 billion or so that has accrued to it in the last 1 year. Nigeria must account how these monies have been spent, because the feedback they are getting from the country is not commensurate. So much money has come into the system, but there is really not much to show for it. That is why people like Obi Ezekwesili can come out and talk the way they have talked. And the only way to silence people like that is to ensure that there is meaningful development in the society, that people can drive on roads without potholes, without without bad roads. People can drive
without
on the streets freely without fear of being harassed or being attacked. People can be sure that they can set up businesses and their businesses will thrive because there is adequate power. you know, that these things are there, that people would go to that, Nigerians would send their kids to school and be sure that their kids will come out of school with good grades and indeed will come out with knowledge and
not
something
just
to
theory,
offer the society.
also,
not just going there to obtain a certificate,
yes.
which is what we see in the country today.
So I wanted to ask, because we've not really dealt with this matter, do you think the Freedom of Information Act should be deployed here? Do you think Nigerians are owed the information, right, first-hand information of all the dealings, all the withdrawals, everything, the state of the foreign reserves account? Do you think Nigerians...
To a large extent, I think the Ministry of Finance, the best they can do is publish, as they've always done, the various allocations to states and to federal government. But how these monies are spent, again, that is where the legislature is actually supposed to play a major role. At the state level, the Houses of Assembly, and at the federal level, the National Assembly. They are supposed to provide those checks and balances. They are supposed to ensure that these monies are judicially utilized. But what we see in the country today is the direct opposite. They are handing gloves with the executive, and that is why things have remained the way they are. Until we see true separation of powers, until we see when the legislature will rise up to its responsibility and not simply disagree with the executive when it is not in their interest. Most times they come out and they argue and say, oh, we are doing what we are doing for national, in the interest of the nation. And I have argued, in whose interest is this national interest?
Yeah, exactly.
Because clearly what we've seen over the years is their personal interests. Is their personal interest. They have oversight functions. They are supposed to ensure that, for instance, the ministries and government parastatals, carry out the activities as they are supposed to, and that they bring about the needed development in the society. Yeah. But the moment the legislators the legislators, whether at state, those ones in the state, we have seen, and this is though arguable, they are practically all in the pockets of their governors.
So
they can't oppose their governors because they are all looking for one favor or the other. So because of political patronage, nobody wants to disagree with His Excellency, the governor.
Quotes, yeah.
And also at the federal level, the only time we see that they disagree is when maybe it's time for budget presentation and they feel that what is coming to them is not commensurate, so they look at it, and then this is an insider fact. When they look at what the executive have planned to spend in the course of the year, they also want to make sure that what they spend is also close to something that provides them some allowance to make as much money as they would want to make. Now, at the end of the day, there is nothing like the interest of the nation. And the reason we are having all these talks, whether Ezekwesili is talking or Labaran Marco is replying, or people are protesting at the Supreme Court or Ministry of Justice, go to the social media, everywhere is awash with this development, with this dance of shame, I would say, when we are supposed to be talking about how many good roads we have built, what we have done with the railway system, what we have done with the health sector, what we have done with security. But those who have a responsibility to get them to act are hand in gloves with them. And then that is where, okay, we'll talk about the Freedom of Information Bill, which is what, that affects me. As a person, because I'm a media practitioner. Now, what we don't know is that...
And your outfit is a very good one, because you do most of investigative stories. I was about to even ask how you go about that. It's really investigative.
We'll get to that. But looking at the FOI bill, the FOI bill is not a panacea, as it were. Because it is, what I'm trying to say is, it is not an end in itself, though it is a means to an end.
Because it has
all right. So how many Nigerians are really aware of the details of this FOI bill that have been passed into law? How many of us are aware? How many of us know the nitty-gritty of the bill? What is available to us? The opportunities we have, the privilege we have to take advantage of the FOI bill.
Okay, we've touched.
Now,
I told you.
One argument here. It is one thing for you to write, to demand for information. It's another thing for the information to be supplied to you. Yeah. But we are yet to see any individual or a media organization or any group that has fully exhausted the provisions of the FOI bill. And I think maybe we should really look at what role the FOI bill can, I mean the freedom of information bill can really, it's no longer a bill because it's been signed into law, so it's an act in itself. So we really want to see how we can take advantage of that instrument to demand
for information,
fiscal responsibility,
transparency.
Yeah, transparency on the part of governments, both at the local, state, and federal level. I think that is what we need to do. Okay. Some of us have tried to use it, but one thing, like I said, is one thing for you to write, it's another thing for you to get a response. We've written on several issues, but most often than not, they just tell you what they want you to know. They tell you what they want you to know. So how do you tell that the information they have supplied you with is not the genuine information? That is where the investigative journalism that we have been, involved in, is being the only alternative that we have in this scenario. Digging in and then going through sources,
all the facts and all the
trying to get as much facts as possible, because we must bring these people to understand the fact that they must be transparent, they must be accountable.
Yes, we must, and that's what we're doing. Of course, this is also an avenue in ensuring that we make sure that you hear, not just hear, but you are made aware of all the provisions in the Freedom of Information Act. Now, if you're just joining us, this is the agenda, and we've been taking a look at transparency and accountability in government funds management in Nigeria, and I've been talking to Mr. Sylvester Ebuldage. Thank you so much, sir. Let's leave this issue about the mudslinging between Obi Ezekwesili and Labaran Mako for a while. Let's look at the police pension fraud case involving John Yakubu Yusufu and others, of course. One cannot but ask, what exactly does Nigeria seek to symbolize and convey with this level of brazen misappropriation of public resources and the levity, of course, with which such offenses are dealt with? What's your own view on this?
Again, this is another very, very sad development for our country. These are some of the things that really make Nigeria a laughingstock in the global
international community,
among the Committee of Nations, because again, this is a country that wants to be among the top 20 economies in the world in the year 2020, and then you are simply encouraging corruption, because that is what we can see from that judgment. Because don't forget, there is a precedent. We had a former governor, the former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, who was discharged and acquitted on all charges
over 21
by high courts in this country, over 100 of them. And then for the same offenses, he is serving jail time in the United Kingdom. And then it breaks my heart when those who are supposed to speak up against this miscarriage of justice, because this amounts to injustice, because a miscarriage of justice amounts to an injustice, because you can't possibly explain the rationale behind that ruling. I'm not so knowledgeable about the criminal procedure or criminal justice administration in Nigeria, but I look forward to more revelations coming from stakeholders in that profession, because it really, for me, ridicules the legal profession, particularly those members of the bench. because what the judge has done simply explains the fact that, or simply suggests to anyone that this is simply, I mean, a paid judgment. Only that the EFCC deemed it fit to rearrest the fellow, which was a response to the public outcry. But I think it has rubbished the criminal administration, and I mean the criminal justice administration procedure in our country, and we are calling on judges all around the country to realize the fact that they are being watched. And we are being watched, because these things, as they happen, they get on the internet and they go viral. Yes. I mean, all over the world, people are tweeting, people are commenting, people are talking about it, and people can understand. Because we see in places like the United States, because the Nigerian democracy is being tailored after the United States democratic system. And it's amazing. We saw what happened with Madoff, you know, between 2008 and 2009. I mean, for embezzling funds, he got almost a life sentence without an option.
Without an option, exactly.
Without an option. And every property he had was confiscated. And here we are. And don't forget, in this same country, we had a former governor of Edo State, Chief Lucky Benedion. I don't like calling them Chief, but Lucky Benedion, because course, I mean, such a person can come out and
be a model.
There is no honor, you know, in what they have done. You know, it's quite sad. For stealing over 3 billion, he was given an option of fine of just 4 million naira. It's sad. You see, these are things we've seen over the years, but for once, we are seeing a public outcry. And like I tell people, there is a court greater than the court of justice.
Of course.
It is the court of public opinion. And that is where we see these issues going to. When the court of justice refuses to give justice, these issues go to the court of public opinion. They go to the court of our conscience. It's quite sad. Remember, in this country, a lawyer accused the Chief Justice of the Federation of collecting bribe to give a judgment in favor of someone who was considered an ex-convict. And these are things that have happened over the years, and they were overlooked. And now it has happened in a most embarrassing way. And the entire country is shouting. They are saying enough is enough. And that is why I commend all those who have talked about this issue on the internet, on Twitter, on Facebook, on the various social media platforms, and of course on the pages of the newspaper, on TV, on radio, because every discussion today, whether on radio, on TV, they are all centered around this miscarriage of justice,
and the fight against corruption. This
show of shame by this judge, yes, who I think I don't know if they are called the National Judicial Council, by now should institute, you know, a disciplinary procedure against such a judge.
Exactly.
I don't know whatever you know, information or factors he based his decision on, but I think the belief out there is the fact that this is a miscarriage of justice.
It's a miscarriage. Okay, let's take a report now. You're still on to the agenda, and we're taking a look at very, very sad issues. And the point is, the media has really impacted change in this country, talking about the fight against corruption. I'm going to put a question to you before we lay this matter down, but we'll have a report on the pension fund management, and we want to take it quickly before we come back to the studio. So don't go away, hang on.
Murmurs of disapproval filled the hall as the chairman of the Pensions Recovery Task Team opened a lid to the rot in the pension administration in the country. He detailed the fraud the team discovered after it was set up in June 2010 by former head of service Steve Orosai. He said the staff of the pension department of the Office of the Head of Service used the accounts of primary school teachers and the National Union of Pensioners to siphon pension funds.
the benefits that we have seen, or the files that we have seen, we realize that these files have been paid 3 times over. They were paid to the same staff of that office. These are dead people and their children are there crying, and then they will take these funds and pay the dead case, and then they will go and convert the file back to life.
The revelations prompted an emotional outburst from a member of a Senate committee.
Please, let us stop all this nonsense. I'm fed up of this country, honestly.
Members of the committee then sought to know the whereabouts of the recovered pension funds, which he said is in the tune of 151.6 billion naira and £6 million, excluding recovered properties.
Now you can see the actions there, the anxiousness, the agitation from everyone about the whole issue of this pension management funds. What can you say about it, really?
You know, again, these are some of the, this is one of the several challenges that I think the present administration, the Goodluck administration, would really need to rise up and deal with the issue of corruption, because he has been accused of paying lip service to the fight against corruption. Recently, leaders of the southern Nigeria, comprising of the southwest, southeast, and south-south, where he also comes from, had a meeting. Elders from the 3 zones had a meeting in Enugu just a few days ago, and clearly passing what I can consider a vote of no confidence
on their own son, in quote.
Yes, because they are saying you need to step up. Corruption is killing the country. If you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill the country. You can imagine a people appointed to manage funds belonging to pensioners, people who have served the country.
Many of them have even died along the way.
What they deserve, you will not let it get to them. You will defraud them, and thereby defrauding the country. Because of what you have done, many of them have died. Many of them are starving. Many of them are in pains, and then raining curses on the nation because of 1, 2, or 3 persons who have been so appointed to manage the funds. And that is why I can't understand why a judge will sit in judgment and overlook the spillover effects of the crimes committed by these persons, and then just to hand a judgment that is like a slap, on the wrist of the criminal, as it were.
So
this is quite sad.
Sad.
Again, this is just one of several others. And until we begin to address this issue of corruption, each time I have to talk about the issue of corruption, I always try as much as possible to disconnect my emotions from it, because it's something that I know what corruption is doing to our country. When I was growing up, I still remember with every sense of modesty, there was a man who was caught stealing tubers of yams from another person's farmland. He was brought out and shamed. He was made to carry those yams on his head from the beginning of that village to the compound of the village chief or village head, where a judgment was passed, and he was excommunicated. In fact, nobody was to talk with him, and we were even warned, then we were little kids, not to even talk with his children.
Wow.
Each time you did anything, and they would say, do you want to be like him? Do you want to be like them? Because of that, everybody became very, very concerned, and every parent made sure that their kids did the right things and all that.
Yes.
But in Nigeria today, people who are caught red-handed, who are involved in corrupt practices
and in that magnitude
are celebrated. Exactly. Because that means it's like the country today is celebrating corruption. That is why the fight against corruption is like a child's play. So because clearly we appear to be celebrating corruption. So apart from the little results we saw between 2003, 2004, 2005 into 2006, we can't say for sure that we have really seen much of, progress. I mean, much results, progress made in the fight against corruption. And that is the beginning. That is the beginning until the present administration, wakes up to this responsibility and fights corruption head on. Corruption will fight back, and this system may not survive it.
That's true. Very true. Now, do you see the shallow judgment delivery on corruption cases as a further indictment on the Nigerian judiciary? Like we're saying, or it should be laid wholly on the president of the nation?
No. You see, where I hold the president responsible is when the agencies, the government agencies, saddled with the responsibility to fight corruption, like the EFCC, the police, the ICPC, and all those agencies. They must be seen to be doing their jobs. I can't understand why an agency like that, after conducting an investigation, you send your investigation report to somebody somewhere, and then you wait for the person to give you go-ahead, a political go-ahead, when you know that this person has committed this crime, you have the facts, you have enough evidences to take this man to court, and you are certain you will get conviction. There are cases like that. There are many cases that have been investigated. I mean, recently, the chairman of one of the commissions was quoted by somebody as saying that the reason, because he was maybe having an informal conversation with a friend, and the friend challenged him and said, "Come, what are you guys doing? I mean, people, it's like you guys are sleeping." And then he just said it, though they will always deny it, that the reason he has not moved the way he would have loved to move is because of the presidency. That the presidency is slowing him down. That should not be the case. You see, as far as that's concerned, we hold the presidency responsible. Yeah. But as far as the conduct of the judiciary is concerned, you cannot hold the presidency responsible, because we expect the judiciary to be independent, and then we expect that these judges who sit in judgment are people of high integrity who cannot be swayed by any gratification whatsoever, whether by any promise of a political patronage, by way of elevation or whatsoever, who will believe that he has a responsibility to ensure that there is justice. And that is where we must leave that blame at the doorstep of the judiciary. They would have to clean that mess. And that was why I wasn't quite pleased, though a bit pleased, when I heard that the protesters went to Supreme Court, they went to Ministry of Justice, and I said, but the Nigerian Bar Association were having a function at the International Conference Center in Abuja. That is where they should have gone to, because the Chief Justice of Nigeria was there, all the Supreme Court justices were there, the Attorney General of the Federation was there. So why leave them at that function? And they should have gone there and barricaded that, they will barricade that gate and demand that the Chief Justice of Nigeria received that petition letter from them. And that is when they will know that Nigerians are fed up. We have been putting the blame at the doorstep of the government, of those agencies saddled with the responsibility to carry out investigation. But now we are seeing, because some of the agencies have argued in the past that when we take these people to court, the judges let them go. The judges let them go. The courts let them go. And now we just see it happen, and that is why Nigerians must direct their anger and their clamor for change to the right, in the right direction. We must demand from the judiciary that the right thing is done. We want to hear in the coming days, in the coming weeks, that the Nigerian Judicial Council or the National Judicial Council have taken disciplinary action against judges at different times who have been involved in this show of shame that they call judgment.
All right, let's take a few comments now. I have 2 comments from, one from Uwem Hernan Iyang from Akwa Ibom State, and he says it's almost like an epistle. I'll quickly take it. It says the onus is on this lady seeking attention than others. When she claims stems back to late Umaru Yar'Adua rule, which will involve a lot of people, including the greedy governors who empty the excess crude account. We all know. We also know how OBJ dipped his hands into the excess crude account to conduct one sham of a census. This lady cannot even account for over 450 billion naira under ministry and what was achieved and where, and she is here throwing stones. I mean, she served in OBJ's time, and has she asked him to do about the millions of dollars he took from the excess crude account? All right, so his grounds is on the former minister. That's Obi Ezekwesili.
No, the former minister has equally been accused that since she lost her World Bank job, she probably wants a job with the present administration, and the only way to register her protest that the current administration has refused to grant her request is to go all out and be antagonistic of the current administration. Again, I said earlier, as much as we agree that every individual who has served in one capacity or the other has a responsibility to account for his or her actions. I do not debunk the fact that there is need for the former minister to equally account for the over 400 billion that was spent while she was education minister.
Yes.
But I don't want it to be a case of we are not the only ones. What about you?
What about you?
But the point is, see, as a government in power, you have a responsibility, because in damage control, be careful not to escalate these issues. Because Nigerians are not timid. Nigerians are not as timid as you think they are. Because they are not actually timid. Nigerians are watching. And with the reaction you're seeing as far as this issue is concerned, because the presidency is actually feeling the heat. Nigerians want to know. Don't tell us about in your time. You are the one there now.
Yes.
This one that we have heard, that
exactly.
you that is there, that you have spent, can you tell us how you spent this money? Of course, over time, I always say it. Maybe not today. Maybe in the tomorrow of Nigeria, everyone that has held one public office or the other would have to account in one way or the other for what he or she has done.
That is true.
Just like we saw at one point when the President Obasanjo came in, we had the contract review committee headed by the Dr. Christopher Kolade, the Kolade panel. We also saw when Yar'Adua came in, he got, the House of Rep had to probe the power sector. We knew all that came out of that. We also saw recently the subsidy probe, even though that is one probe, that is almost going the way of other probes in the past.
Under the carpet, yes.
Again, which also casts aspersion on the integrity of the current administration as far as its anti-corruption credentials are concerned.
That's true.
But in one way or the other, we believe that these people will come and go.
Of course.
But Nigeria will remain.
Of course.
So what they do, if they don't account for it today, in the tomorrow of Nigeria, they will be made to account for it.
No doubt. There's a saying that mediocrity has a lifespan. Thank you so much, Mr. Sylvester Budage. I'll have to round up with this last comment from Olorun Dera Biodun Sheun, Lagos. It says, whatever money the federal government is challenging Dr. Obi for was allocated to her ministry and not to her personal account. Again, how are we sure they are even being truthful with the accusations? Even if the figure were true, why did they wait till now before voicing out? I'll suggest that remain objective, as this government cannot be trusted. Well, because of time, we're really pressed for time. We really want to thank Mr. Sylvester once again for sharing these views and thoughts on how we can move the country forward in terms of transparency and accountability. in government management of funds. Mr. Sylvester Bodege is the MD CEO Paradigm Communications, publisher of National Daily Newspaper and National Standard Magazine. He's also a consultant and public policy analyst, as you've heard him. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming
Thank you for
around.
having me.
This is the agenda. Well, my views, I think, okay, imagine a debate with Obi Ezekwesili and the Information Minister Labaran Maku. That would be a huge one in the fight against corruption. If you ask me, information has truly gone far enough in the fight against corruption. We've always had great laws, but our challenge hitherto has been to implement and enforce these laws in the society. No matter the rot in the state of the nation, change is imminent, but we need to start now. My name is Philip Ihaza. You know how to be a part of the show. Stay with us. Next week, we'll be back, same time, same station, with another exciting edition of The Agenda. Until then, it's bye for now.
So it's not the Constitution that is a problem per se, but those that are supposed to interpret it and then administer it.
See, what we're saying is that people should be passionate about their job. We should have people that love this country. People say, you know what, we don't want deregulation of petroleum products. We want the subsidy to continue. We want our refineries to be prepared. But you go talk to somebody who runs or works in one of these refineries, they will tell you why those refineries can never work. There is a